Hey everyone, Tommy here. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're taking a trip way back. Back to a time of Saturday morning cartoons, sugary cereal, and some of the most diabolical, over-the-top, and downright unforgettable villains ever drawn. We're talking about the 1980s, the golden age of animated antagonists. These were the characters we loved to hate, the ones whose schemes kept us glued to our massive tube TVs every single week. This isn't just some random list. We're ranking these titans of terror based on their sheer popularity, their lasting cultural impact, and how well they've stood the test of time. Some became memes, some are still getting reboots, and all of them are burned into the brains of anyone who grew up in that glorious decade. So grab your bowl of Frankenberry, get comfortable on that shag carpet, and prepare for a massive dose of pure, uncut nostalgia. We're about to count down the top 10 most iconic cartoon villains of the 1980s. Kicking off our list is the master of insults, the skull-faced lord of Snake Mountain himself, Skeletor. When you think of 80s villains, his bony grin is probably one of the first things that pops into your head. He was the main antagonist in He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. His entire goal was to get into Castle Grayskull and unlock its secrets, which he believed would give him ultimate power over Eternia. He commanded a legion of bungling morons like Beastman, Trapjaw, and Triclops, who were about as useful as a screen door on a spaceship. This was a huge part of his charm. The real magic wasn't just his design, it was his personality. He wasn't just some cackling overlord, he was a petulant, sarcastic, and frankly hilarious failure. His high-pitched, screechy voice was unforgettable. "I'll get you next time, He-Man," followed by that wheezing laugh, or his constant barrage of creative insults. "You boob, you fur-faced fool!" Skeletor has transcended the show to become a legitimate pop culture icon. He's a meme lord, an internet sensation. He failed in every episode, but he won the long game. Coming in at number 9 is a villain forged from steel and fueled by pure ambition, Megatron. As the ruthless leader of the Decepticons, he wasn't just trying to conquer some magical castle, he wanted to dominate the entire universe. Unlike Skeletor's bumbling crew, the Decepticons were a legitimate threat. Starscream was treacherous, Soundwave was terrifyingly efficient, and Shockwave was a cold, logical engine of destruction. You can't talk about Megatron without his transformation. The idea that this towering robot could become a handgun was mind-blowing for 80s kids. It made no tactical sense, but who cares? It was cool as hell. His voice, provided by Frank Welker, was perfect. Gravelly, menacing, and dripping with contempt. The constant back and forth between Megatron and Starscream was a recurring highlight, a masterclass in toxic work environments. His epic battle with Optimus Prime in the Transformers movie is a cinematic moment that scarred a generation. It was brutal, tragic, and cemented his legacy as a top-tier villain. Our number 8 spot goes to the man who led a ruthless terrorist organization, yet had the voice of a man who just gargled with razor blades, Cobra Commander. As supreme leader of Cobra in G.I. Joe, he was the mastermind behind every elaborate, nonsensical scheme. He had a massive organization with unlimited resources and plans that were always grandiose and overly complicated. The most iconic thing about Cobra Commander was his voice. Chris Latta gave him this shrill, hissing, utterly unique voice, the sound of pure, seething frustration. "Cobra!" You can hear that shriek right now. He was constantly being let down by underlings like the vain Baroness, the greedy Destro, and the idiotic Zartan. The infighting within Cobra's high command was often more entertaining than their fights with the Joes. Every week G.I. Joe would blow up his multi-billion-dollar base, and the next week he'd have a brand new one. He was a master of retreating, always ready with an escape pod, screaming, "You haven't seen the last of me, G.I. Joe." At number 7 we have the arch-nemesis of 4 pizza-loving reptiles, the leader of the Foot Clan, the one and only Shredder. With his menacing samurai-inspired armor covered in blades, he was the perfect fit. Shredder had a deeply personal rivalry with the Turtles, specifically with their master, Splinter. The backstory was classic martial arts movie stuff, a feud over honor and love, leading to exile and revenge. He operated out of the Technodrome, a giant mobile spherical fortress always getting stuck in inconvenient places. He constantly bossed around Bebop and Rocksteady, 2 punk rock morons who couldn't pour water out of a boot. James Avery, yes, Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince, gave Shredder his booming, authoritative, and perpetually angry voice. When he yelled at Bebop and Rocksteady or schemed with the alien brain Krang, you felt his fury. He was a serious threat, constantly being dragged into absurdity by his idiot henchmen, his annoying brain boss, or the wise-cracking turtles themselves. He was the perfect straight man in a world of comedic chaos. Cracking our list at number 6 is the ancient undead sorcerer from Third Earth, Mum-Ra, the Ever-Living. This guy was the stuff of nightmares for kids in the 80s, his raspy voice chanting that unforgettable incantation. Ancient spirits of evil, transform this decayed form to Mum-Ra, the Ever-Living. Then, with a blast of energy, he'd transform into a massive blue-skinned muscular demon. Mum-Ra's powers were vast and mystical. He could shapeshift, fire energy bolts, and command the elements. He wasn't just a physical threat, he was a master of deception and psychological warfare. His only weakness was seeing his own reflection, which would force him back into his shriveled mummy form. It was a strange, almost vampiric weakness that added to his mystique. Mum-Ra's impact comes from his pure, unadulterated evil. He wasn't comedic relief. He was a genuine, terrifying monster who wanted nothing but destruction and enslavement. He was the dark heart of the series, a timeless evil that could never be truly defeated. Our number 5 spot is reserved for a villain so menacing, we almost never even saw him. We're talking about the mysterious, gravel-voiced leader of the MAD organization, Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget. For the entire run of the original series, all we ever saw was his gloved, metallic hand, stroking Mad Cat. This simple creative choice created one of the most suspenseful and intriguing villains in cartoon history. All you had to go on was his chair, and that iconic, deep, menacing voice, courtesy of Frank Welker again. He was always monitoring Gadget's bumbling, getting angrier as his brilliant schemes were accidentally foiled. His catchphrase is legendary. At the end of every episode, after Gadget inadvertently saved the day, Dr. Claw would slam his fist and growl, "I'll get you next time, Gadget, next time." It was as reliable as the sunrise. This commitment to the bit is what makes Dr. Claw so iconic. He represents the unknown, the faceless evil mastermind, a concept inherently more frightening than a monster you can see. Sometimes what you don't see is far more powerful than what you do. Coming in at number 4 is the main villain from Etheria, a monster so bad he was the mentor to Skeletor himself. I'm talking about Hordak, the leader of the evil horde and primary antagonist of She-Ra, Princess of Power. While Skeletor was busy failing in Eternia, Hordak was successfully running a brutal industrial dictatorship in Etheria. He wasn't just trying to conquer the planet, he already had. The show was about the rebellion against him. Hordak was fascinating because of his connection to the He-Man universe. We learned he was Skeletor's old boss in the Horde, and that Skeletor betrayed him and left him trapped in another dimension. Hordak saw Skeletor as a pathetic, backstabbing apprentice. His design was bizarre and creepy. He was a cyborg who could transform his body parts, most famously his arm, into weapons like a cannon or rocket. It was a grotesque and cool ability that made him a formidable physical opponent. He ruled from the terrifying Fright Zone, a place that looked like it was designed by a heavy metal album cover artist. His leadership style was pure tyranny. His favorite pastime seemed to be punishing Mantenna by dropping him through a trapdoor. While She-Ra was about hope, rebellion, and friendship, Hordak represented the opposite: oppression, industrialization, and soulless cruelty. He was a dictator, a technological terror, and a dark mirror to the magic and beauty of Etheria. For our number 3 spot, we're heading to the planet of New Texas for a villain who's a little different. He's a ghoulish supernatural outlaw, the most wanted varmint in the galaxy. Tex Hex from Bravestar. This show was a unique blend of sci-fi and western, and it needed a villain to match. Tex Hex was the perfect answer. A skeletal cowboy zombie with purple skin, tattered uniform, and glowing red eyes. He was Clint Eastwood's man with no name if he'd been dead for 100 years. Tex Hex was the right-hand man for the real main villain, a giant, demonic, floating bronco head named Stampede. Stampede was the source of Tex's power, having resurrected him from the dead to be his agent of chaos on New Texas. What made Tex Hex stand out was his arsenal of supernatural powers. He could summon creatures, fire bolts of dark magic, and wielded a neutral laser pistol. He was a sorcerer in a cowboy hat, which was a pretty awesome combination. He was the perfect foil for Marshal Bravestar. Bravestar had the powers of animals: eyes of the hawk, ears of the wolf, strength of the bear, speed of the puma. Tex Hex was powered by pure evil and undeath. It was a classic showdown of nature versus the unnatural, set against a backdrop of saloons and spaceships. While Bravestar may not be as universally remembered as He-Man or Transformers, Tex Hex was incredibly well-designed and memorable. He was genuinely creepy, had a cool backstory, and perfectly fit the show's sci-fi western theme. He was a space zombie desperado, a concept so weird and so 80s that it just had to work. Nearing the top of our list at number 2 is a villain who wasn't just an antagonist. He was a force of nature, an obstacle that seemed truly insurmountable. We're talking about Venger from the Dungeons & Dragons cartoon. For the kids trapped in the realm, Venger was the ultimate evil. He was the reason they couldn't get home, the dark sorcerer who wanted the power of their magical weapons for himself. He was, in a word, terrifying. Venger's design was pure, distilled menace. He had a deep, resonant voice provided by Peter Cullen, yes, the voice of Optimus Prime. Hearing that same iconic voice deliver lines of pure evil was a trip. Venger wasn't a bungler, he wasn't a comedian, he was a powerful, intelligent, and ruthless wizard who commanded legions of orcs and other monsters. When Venger showed up, the tone shifted. You knew the heroes were in for a serious fight. One of the most compelling parts of Venger's character was his connection to the Dungeon Master. The show slowly revealed that Venger was Dungeon Master's son, corrupted by evil long ago. This added a layer of tragedy. He wasn't just a monster, he was a fallen hero, a lost soul. Venger instilled a real sense of fear in the audience. He represented the ultimate challenge in a world filled with dragons, demons, and dark magic. He was the final boss of the realm. His menacing presence, immense power, and dark secret made him one of the most well-written and formidable villains of the era. And here we are, the number 1 most iconic cartoon villain of the 1980s. It might not be who you expect. It's not a lord of destruction or a robot tyrant. It's a sad, pathetic, and utterly obsessed old wizard in a tattered black robe, Gargamel from the Smurfs. Gargamel's motivation was beautifully simple and completely insane. He had 2 main goals: capture the Smurfs to eat them, believing they were a delicacy, or capture them to use in a magic formula to create gold. Whether he wanted to eat them or melt them down, the point is, he wanted them, badly. He was the ultimate failure. Every single plan, no matter how clever or elaborate, ended in disaster. He'd fall into his own traps, get chased by his own creations, or just be outsmarted by 100 little blue creatures. And let's not forget Azrael, his long-suffering cat. Azrael was smarter than his master, and would often look on with smug satisfaction or sheer exasperation as Gargamel's plans blew up in his face. They were a classic comedic duo. Gargamel is number 1 because he is universal. He represents obsession, frustration, and failure. The Smurfs was a global phenomenon, and Gargamel became a household name in dozens of countries. Everybody knows Gargamel. He wasn't a threat to the universe. His world was tiny, defined only by his hovel in the nearby Smurf village. But in that small world, he was the ultimate villain. His comedic incompetence and single-minded pursuit of a ridiculous goal make him, without a doubt, the most recognizable and iconic cartoon villain of the 1980s. And that's our list. From the obsessive failure of Gargamel to the skull-faced sarcasm of Skeletor, the 1980s gave us a rogues gallery that has truly stood the test of time. These villains weren't just obstacles, they were characters in their own right, with personalities, quirks, and catchphrases that are burned into our collective memory. They were the reason we tuned in each week, the perfect foils for our beloved heroes. Without their evil schemes and constant failures, Saturday mornings just wouldn't have been the same. They were the salt in the sugary cereal of our childhoods, but that's just my take. The 80s were packed with amazing villains. It was tough to narrow it down to just 10. Now, I want to hear from you. Who was your favorite 80s cartoon villain? Did I miss someone crucial? Head down to the comments and let me know. If you had fun reliving these glory days of animation, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into retro pop culture. We've got a lot more countdowns and retrospectives planned that you won't want to miss. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to Tommy James Most Random for more awesome content. Your support means the world to me. Stay nostalgic, and I'll see you next time.